All right, welcome to Steeler Country. I am Tony Serino, coming to you live from my Airbnb out here in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. The Steelers had their last practice yesterday. That'll be their last practice before their first preseason game. We're going to get real football. We're going to get to see the Steelers again. I know a lot of you probably can't make it out to training camp. And so tomorrow is going to be the first time you get to see a lot of these players. I'm excited, as I'm sure you are. And so today, what I want to do on the show is to go over the players I'm kind of most excited to watch position by position. Now, look, I wanted to get a little creative here. There's going to be some obvious names at certain positions, guys like George Pickens. I'm sure everybody's going to be thrilled to watch George Pickens tomorrow, as am I. But I tried to dig a little deeper. Talk about some of the position battles here, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the show. So let's start at the quarterback position, where I can't get creative because who else is there to watch here? Of course, all eyes are going to be on Steelers rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett, who has had a training camp. He's had a training camp thus far. Obviously the first 3 days were really, really rough for him. He has improved day by day since. I thought yesterday's practice for him was, well, it wasn't a bad practice. There was a couple, concerning moments, I guess I'll say. Couple broken coverages that he just didn't see whatsoever. I mean, just completely missed the backside of the play being wide open. And it was a real head scratcher. And I think again, it's not, I don't think it's anything to be too alarmed about when it comes to Kenny and his development. It just kind of tells you where he is right now, right? He's not seeing the full field just yet. We're what, 2.5 weeks in training camp. You shouldn't expect that yet. But I did want to bring it up today because, again, if all we're going to do is say, oh, Kenny's doing great, we don't point out that, hey, yesterday's practice maybe not his best, and certainly certainly some things that he needs to improve on there when it comes to seeing the full field and understanding what he's looking at defensively and understanding when there's just an obvious broken coverage. So that's where we are with Kenny. I'm excited to see what he does on Saturday. I think that the most interesting part about Kenny is where he's going to play. Is he going to play with the second team? Mike Tomlin in that press conference the other day said Mitch is going to start this game. Of course, Mitch Trubisky is the starting quarterback of this team, as I've talked about pretty much every video I've done here from training camp. But there is a battle for the second spot. The second team reps have been split between Kenny and Mason Rudolph. And I wonder if in tomorrow's game, if we don't see Kenny Pickett as the starting quarterback, or excuse me, as the second string quarterback for this team, because when Tomlin talked about it, he said first team's going to play the first quarter, second team's going to play the second and third quarter, and then the third team's going to play the fourth quarter. Well, okay. I mean, I understand only wanted to put the starters out there for a quarter, so Mitch is going to play a quarter. Cool. But why would you play why if the second team's going to play the second and third quarter? What more do you need to see out of me? I mean, the Steelers are kind of in this post-Ben Roethlisberger era. This is a really exciting time for all Steeler fans because, hey, everything's changing. Do we really need in the first preseason game to see the one quarterback we've got 4 years of tape on already? I'm not thrilled about that. So I'm hoping that Kenny gets those second team reps for a couple reasons. I think with the second team here, that's when you're going to see a lot of George Pickens, I'm assuming Calvin Austin's going to be in that group. Anthony Miller, potentially Miles Boykin could be in that group as well. I think all these guys will kind of get mixed in there. That's a good second team unit. As I've talked about this wide receiver battle, there's some good talent on this thing. Maybe it's not like the most top heavy in the league, but it's certainly a deep unit. And I think if Kenny gets a chance with that second team, he can do well for himself out there. Also, the worry for Kenny if he is going to play on that third team is, boy, that third team offensive line is just not good. I mean, they're just straight up not good. And you do wonder if Kenny's going to be in a situation where he's going to be running for his life out there in the fourth quarter with that third team. So regardless, I mean, look, this is our first chance to see Kenny Pickett under the lights. It's a lot of things change for quarterbacks in these preseason games. This is the first time they can get hit, right? I mean, it's one thing for them to stand back in the pocket and they can make, as I've talked about with Kenny, right? He's doing a lot of ad-libbing here. Some of those times, those ad libs would have just ended up in a sack but they can't hit him. They're going to hit him tomorrow. So we'll see how he responds to that. We'll see how he responds to being an Acrisure Stadium. Let's go over to running back here. There's only one name to watch. That's Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren had a terrific practice yesterday. A lot of running, a lot of physicality in yesterday's practice. I was shocked at how much physicality Mike Tomlin wanted out of his team. Essentially 2-3 days before their first preseason game, pads were on and they were hitting, and he had drills for them to hit. And then those live run sessions, he was He was getting both teams ready. Hey, I want to see some hitting out here. The guy who did the best out of and in yesterday's practice was Jaylen Warren. Broke up an 85-yard touchdown run, had another big one. Did well in they had a little open field drill where Tomlin set up cones along this, and then kind of 5 yards separated, maybe 7 yards separated from the sideline. Had had the running back or receiver kind of catch the ball with their back turn and then turn around and try to beat the defender. Jaylen Warren did really well for himself. Again, he's the thing about Jaylen Warren. He's this kind of smallish, roly-poly type, just kind of bounces off of guys, very, very slippery. Again, I wouldn't say he's, I wouldn't consider him a power back. I wouldn't consider him like a speed back. He's just very elusive, but very, very strong to the hole. It was interesting watching him and Master Teague because the Steelers have a lot of running back injuries right now. No Najee Harris, no Benny Snell right now, and I think no Mateo Durant as well. So they're down 3 guys, which is giving a lot of reps to guys like Jaylen Warren and Master Teague as well. Master Teague is certainly a more of a thumper than Jaylen Warren. And when Master Teague gets going, whoo, baby, you do not want to be in the way of Master Teague. He did very well in that open field drill. I'm sure you guys have seen the clips on Twitter. But the problem for Master Teague is it takes him a while for him to kind of, to build up that power. It was interesting watching him going from that session into the run session. Because taking the handoff, he just never. It felt like he was always tiptoeing to the line and didn't get a chance to build that power that Master Teague has. Jaylen Warren, on the other hand, he hits the hard. He hits the hard. I mean, he is quick to get going. He's he made plays in that running game. The day before, he made a big play in the passing game. As I talked about, I think he was good in backs on backers. He's making a strong case for himself to make this 53. It's going to be tough because Benny Snell's not having a bad camp, and Benny Snell's such a good special teamer. And Anthony McFarland's having a really good camp as well. He's another guy I almost consider putting him here as my player to watch at running back, but it had to be Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren is the crazy thing about him is he's not just making a case to be on the roster. I mean, he's almost making a case that he's RB2, man. I can't wait to watch him. But I really, really hope that what we're seeing on this camp field translates. He's going to get some chances, I'm sure, with the first team, just because of the injuries. I think he'll split time there with McFarland. I think he'll get an extended look with the second team, and then I think Master Teague will come in for that third string. But Jaylen Warren is certainly a player I am very, very excited to watch tomorrow in this preseason game. At wide receiver, look, I know you guys probably expect me to put George Pickens here, or maybe even Calvin Austin. But I'm beyond that. I mean, look, as I said on the last show, if George Pickens isn't at least good, I'm never coming to training camp again because it's pointless, right? I mean, if everything that George Pickens is doing out there and all the spectacular plays he's making don't translate when we actually get the lights on and the real opponents, I mean, there's no point in me coming out here ever again. It doesn't matter. And I think with Calvin Austin, I think with Calvin, I think the Steelers are probably going to want to hide a little bit of how they're going to utilize him. I would imagine they're maybe going to get him on some like end arounds and stuff. You might see him on a little wide receiver screen, but Canada, I'm sure, has a lot of creative ways that he's going to try and manufacture Austin into open field in the regular season. It's not going to do that in the preseason. So it'll be fun to watch Calvin Austin. I think he'll get a chance to return kicks. I'm not saying it's not going to be fun, but the guy who's had the best week of practice at wide receiver outside of George Pickens is Miles Boykin. He's had a terrific week thus far. After having a quiet start to camp, he's really come on here. And as I talked about before, entered himself into that battle. If they're going to keep 6 wide receivers, it's a battle between he and Anthony Miller. And so look for Boykin, big body. He's number 13. He's a big body guy. Has a really good catch radius, and he showed that off a couple days back. This is a guy who's going to be if whoever's running with the 2. I mean, I'm assuming he's going to run with the 2s. Big body guy who I hope, whether it's Mason or Kenny, put it up for him deep and let him try to make something happen because he's done that last couple of days here at camp and could be an interesting, another kind of, built like an outside receiver type for the Steelers as a depth piece. At tight end, there's only one guy I've really talked about throughout camp, and that's Connor Hayward because he has been the talk of the tight ends with Pat Frymouth sitting out the majority of camp thus far. He just came back. And then Zach Gentry being out now, Connor Hayward's getting a ton of looks. I mean, he's getting a ton of looks, and they're using him everywhere. I do wonder, okay, so when you're in preseason, right, you don't want to show everything, so you're going to kind of go a little more vanilla with Connor. I wonder if that, how much they're going to use him in line. I'm interested to see how he looks in line because he hasn't played in line a ton in camp, right? They keep spreading him around. They use him in a variety of different ways. So I'm, Connor, I think is going to surprise a lot of people. Well, certainly, if you had doubts about Connor just because of the name, right? Because it's another brother on the team. I think tomorrow should probably persuade you that no, they picked Connor Hayward because he's just a good player. I mean, he's got good hands. He's a far better athlete than you would think. Good run after catch. He's a really interesting player. I think he's a lock for the 53. I mean, I think the guy's an absolute stone cold lock for the 53. But we haven't played a real game in preseason yet, so let's see what he does tomorrow. On the offensive line, big day for Kendrick Green as this is his first game as a left guard in the National Football League. Kevin Dotson is still out with injury. I'm going to assume he's not going to play, and that's going to mean that Kendrick Green is going to get an extended look tomorrow. He had a much better day of practice yesterday than he had prior. I thought yesterday was a arrow pointing up day for Kendrick, certainly, and you like to see that as you go right into this preseason game. As I said before, look, the longer Kevin Dotson sits out, the more this becomes a Kendrick Green is the starting left guard of the Pittsburgh Steelers situation, right? There's no battle anymore. You can't win the battle from the sidelines, for Kevin Dotson. So big day for Kendrick, big day for just, kind of, solidifying this offensive line, right? I've talked about how good Dan Moore's looked. I think the center and the right guard situation with Mason Cole and James Daniels has kind of looked better and better as we go. And the real question marks here, of course, Chuk's on the right side. Hard to get a read on him because of going up against TJ. And then Kendrick on that left guard spot. I mean, Kendrick Green, again, I'm not expecting him to go out there and look like an all-pro, right? You just don't want to be, you don't want to see the disaster that was Kendrick Green at times last year when he played center. As I talked about before, did they take Kendrick Green and take the experience of Kendrick Green as a center and just move it to guard, or is he going to be more comfortable there? Are they going to get a better player out of him? As I said, yesterday was a good practice for him, but he's going to show that as we go forward, and of course it starts on Saturday in this preseason game. On the defensive line, how about DeMarvin Leal? There's a lot of guys to choose from here. A lot of guys to choose from. Not sure. I wonder how many reps Ogunjobi is going to get. Obviously, he had that surgery in January. I'm certainly intrigued by what he's going to add from a pass rushing perspective. Him and Cam together on the inside with TJ and Highsmith as your edge rushers. Good luck, NFL. But Leal is an interesting player. He has had some good practices going all the way back to, it wasn't the Friday Night Lights practice because obviously that got canceled, but whenever they went back to Latrobe Memorial, from that point forward, I thought he's really started to show out a little bit. Yeah, like he's going to get a little bit buried on the depth chart, as we've talked about, because of the room and how it's situated right now. When we talked about Cam and Ogunjobi, but you've also got Chris Wormley, who put good minutes in for the Steelers a year ago, and he's probably going to be the first guy off the bench. Loudermilk's having a good camp. He's in that room as well. And so, Leal's not trying to fight for a roster spot or anything. He's fighting for playing time. But once again, I think the big thing here is you talk about the defensive line last year and how bad it was. Not just how bad it was, it's how many guys they had to go deep, right? Remember, we're talking about last year, Henry Mondo playing big minutes for this team. Henry Mondo's not making this team this year. And there's no chance Henry Mondo's making the team. But if Leal can continue playing the way he is, I think he's going to give the coaching staff another guy they can go to in rotation. That's going to be big because you talk about Ogunjobi coming off this injury. Cam Hayward's well into his 30s now. You want to give those guys a rest, right? You don't need Cam Hayward out there for 95% of snaps because as this season goes on, he's he kind of, if he fades down the stretch, there's no good. So guys like Leal can help that and give the Steelers that rotation. Let's see what he does tomorrow. Mark Robinson at linebacker again. Okay, the real eyes here are going to be on Robert Spillane versus Devin Bush. Yes, true. But I've talked about that enough on this show. Robert Spillane, by the way, had an awful, horrible day of practice yesterday. Oh boy. I did have the thought leaving camp yesterday after the day that Robert Spillane had, and it's like, how is Devin Bush in a freaking battle with this guy, man? Like, and not to like rag on Devin Bush, obviously, because he's had the injury and whatnot, and I think we all understand why he's struggling so much. But man, there's no way a guy like Devin Bush should be in a battle with a guy like Robert Spillane. Spillane got boom roasted. I mean, just by both Freiermuth down the seam and then McFarland on a wheel route. I mean, you just can't hang with these guys in pass coverage. But he still may win the battle, and I think that's tough. Now, forget about that though. Let's talk about Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson is a rookie. You can see what he got from Ole Miss late in the draft this year. An interesting player. If you don't know Mark Robinson's story, this is a guy who I believe was a running back in college, who transferred a couple times, just trying to get somewhere. I think he ended up walking on at Ole Miss because he had a friend who played there. Ends up becoming a linebacker there. Ends up becoming a starting linebacker on an SEC defense and a very productive one at that. I think he had 100 tackles a season ago at Ole Miss. So props to him. And he's the kind of player where well, this is not a Jalen Warren situation where it's like, yo, holy cow, like who is? But there's these moments, kind of maybe every day, every other day, where you're like, whoa, who was that? Oh, that was Mark Robinson. Damn, I want to see more of that. And that's what I'm kind of hoping for him. I'm just hoping Mark has a couple of those plays tomorrow. Like, he's a rookie, as I said, he's very new to the position, raw. But the more we can see those kind of wow plays from him, again, it's just something for him to build on. I think he's certainly in a position battle, right? Because you got Marcus Allen and Buddy Johnson there. I mean, I don't know if the Steelers are going to keep 5 inside linebackers. They may only keep 4, and so he's he'll be in a battle there if they only keep 4. But he's had some wow moments in this, both in coverage and in run defense. So look for him. He'll likely, well, let's see, what's the rotation going to be? He'll probably play third team if I had to guess. So look for him in kind of going into that fourth quarter. But number 93, Mark Robinson's been an interesting player throughout camp thus far. It takes us over to the cornerback spot. I talked about this the other day. Look, there's no one on the back end of this roster to really pick out when we talk. When you talk about like the DeMarvin Leals and Mark Robinsons, right? There's no Mark Robinson or DeMarvin Leal of the cornerback room right now. I think the 6 players they're going to keep are likely just set in stone at this point. Neither James Pierre or Justin Lane's having a bad enough camp where you'd say, okay, well, maybe we can keep a younger kid or whatever. They're both having solid camps. The competition at corner right now is whether or not Levi Wallace can play well enough on the outside to make the Steelers feel comfortable enough to move Cam Sutton inside. And I think that's what I'm going to be watching for tomorrow. I think Levi will probably play second team if I had to guess. And so, this is a guy who the Steelers are going to want to be playing essentially as a starter for this team in nickel situations, right? Nickel and dime situations. So he's playing against a second team Seahawks team. I expect him to go out there. I don't expect to hear his name called a lot, right, man? I don't expect them to be thrown his way a lot tomorrow. I think Levi, look, the problem for Levi Wallace has always been his thing in his career. He's just not the kind of athlete that you're going to trust to cover some of the speedier receivers in this league. He's a much more physical type player, much more of a do-it-all. He's there in run defense as well. He was the one that was covering George Pickens down the sideline when George made the big catch the other day. He was the one that was covering him on the fade route where he tipped it up to himself. Look, Levi Wallace is just not going to match up against guys like George Pickens really well. And so, how much safety help do they have to give him over the top and that kind of thing? I mean, can Levi Wallace prove himself to be sure enough on the outside that the Steelers can play Cam Sutton in a spot where I think they really want to, which is in the nickel in those, or as in the slot in those nickel situations. And then the last player I have here is Damontae Kazee, the safety, number 24. I would imagine he's going to start because are they going to play Minka? I don't think they're going to play Minka. So I think you're going to see Kazee pretty early in this game. Kazee has had a really good camp. A couple interceptions already. Just been a steady force as that kind of deep safety. And the Steelers yesterday started running a lot of their disguised coverages, right? The kind of inverted cover 2 looks that we'd seen, show 0, drop into cover 4 type stuff. They were doing a lot of that yesterday. It does seem like we may see some of that this week, right? When you're talking about this week of practice, Tomlin always likes to do, let's do a little game prep as we get closer and closer to the game. So, you see some of that. You're going to need Kazee to be good in those situations. Because again, you have these situations like it was Minka yesterday showing blitz and then dropping out, right? Kazee's going to have to do a lot of that stuff. Didn't see that earlier, right? Kazee was kind of, he was as he lined up as a deep safety and ended up as a deep safety. Does he have the athleticism to get back there and keep his eyes on the field in front of him? So that'll be certainly something to watch. I think Kazee's been a good player. I hope that translates because, boy, the Steelers could really have used this position over the last couple of years, that kind of third safety off the bench. Big games for the Steelers tomorrow. I will be there at the game. It's and then I leave on Sunday. So this is it, man. This is the first preseason game, first of 3. Look, I think the second one is obviously going to be more important when you talk about that's when we're going to see the starters for a while. But this is our first chance to see Kenny. How does Kenny look? Obviously, there's all the Malik Willis stuff that happened yesterday. Oh, Malik Willis, so good, so good. How did the Steelers pass on him? Enough of this. Who cares? All right, see if we got any comments here. State of the Steelers says, how do you see the left guard battle? I think I talked about this a little bit, but I'll hit on it again. I thought Kevin Dotson was winning the battle before he got hurt. Dotson getting hurt was a real damper on everything that was happening. I didn't think Dotson was having a great camp, right? I mean, again, I don't know that the Steelers have a starting left guard of the future on the roster right now, right? If you expect that Kevin Dotson is going to become a player that the Steelers are comfortable giving a second contract to, and they're going to give him the reins as they kind of start to rebuild this line, I don't see that out of Dotson. I certainly don't see it out of Kendrick Green either, right? I mean, I didn't think either guy was, worthy of like, okay, this, the Steelers figured this out. But Dotson was certainly better, I thought, than Kendrick over the course of camp. Then he got hurt, and now they're kind of stuck with Kendrick Green. I don't think there's they can move Hassenauer to guard. They started doing that. They started moving Hassenauer to go back over to guard. Hassenauer was a center at the end of last season. He took over for Kendrick Green. Maybe they're doing that just to give Kendrick some, that's the old 2-dog 1-bone situation that Tomlin loves. There isn't a second dog right now with Dotson on the sideline. So, now Kendrick Green, look, I think Kendrick Green had a good day yesterday. As I said before, he had a good day. I hope that continues into this game, and I hope that he can be a stabilizing force on that left guard spot again. They don't need an all-star there. They just need a cog in the wheel, man. They just, it looks like they got a good player in Dan Moore on that left side. I think they probably got a good player in James Daniels at that right guard spot. Kendrick Green just has to be another. If he's just a guy, that's good enough, I think, for what the Steelers are looking for on the offensive line right now, considering how bad it was a season ago. All right, Lumberzack says, Tony, what are your thoughts on Oladokin? I feel for the kid. I understand the reason for drafting him, but he's done literally nothing at camp. Seems like a poor pick, even for a seventh rounder. You have to feel for this kid. You really do. He has gotten 0 reps in team drills so far. Yeah, I think 0. Trying to think back of, like, is there been ever a time when Oladokin came in? I mean, he certainly hasn't anything in his 7 shots. So, was it a bad pick? I mean, look, this was their second 7th round pick, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, their take, it's what roster filler do you want at that spot? I think they will keep him around in the practice squad. He throws a nice ball. I mean, the one thing I'll say about him in individual drills is that, ball comes out of his hand well. I mean, I think he's got decent arm. I'm sure his athleticism is good, right? I mean, he showed that off at South Dakota State, right? But you don't see that here. I just, it's hard. It's hard with Oladokin. I think they're going to keep him on the practice squad. I think they'll probably use him, as their kind of scout team quarterback a lot of the time, especially, when they're prepping for, if Deshaun plays this year and Lamar, that kind of thing. But it's a tough camp for him, man. There's only so many reps to go around, and you're not going to take reps from Kenny at this point. I think Tomlin would be very, very silly to take reps away from Kenny, which again goes back to that point. Please, Tomlin, play Kenny Pickett with the second team. I mean, second and third quarter. Let's see that. Kenny with the third team tomorrow. Almost, it all, in some ways, it feels like a lose-lose situation, right? I mean, if Kenny goes out there and struggles again, and I think there's every possibility that he does, as I talked about, he had an awful first 3 days of camp, and you wonder about how much of that was the jitters and just kind of the new environment, and oh my God, I'm the NFL player and all of that, and do those kind of feelings start to take over again? As this is his first time in a real NFL stadium with a crowd and against a real NFL defense where he can get hit, and does he kind of regress back to who he was those first couple of days? Because obviously, you do that against a third team, and obviously, oh my goodness, Kenny Pickett, massive bust. And then if he goes out there and kills it, right? I mean, he did it against the third team, right? I mean, it is kind of a lose-lose. I would expect that Kenny Pickett's going to be fine. I don't know that if you're expecting Kenny Pickett to go out there and just absolutely dominate. I don't think he's had the week of camp to say that, he's going to go out there and just, and look like an all-star. As I said, there was just, I think he's still a little bit too focused in on his first read. I think I think he needs the game to still slow down a little bit more. I think he needs the game. I think he just needs to do, obviously, like all rookies, he's got to get more comfortable out there with what he's looking at, so that he's not just focused in on who's my first read, who's my second read, right? See the whole field. There were those 2 plays yesterday where he missed wide open receivers. I understand they were on the backside of the play, but he just, didn't see it all. It's easy touchdowns on both. Fred says, glad to see more content on the channel. Appreciate that, Fred. Yep, I'm back. Tony's back. Tony's back on Steeler Country. Steeler Country is back. Man, I can't come out to training camp and not do shows out here. What's the point? Lumberzack says, thoughts on the Roquan Smith fantasy? Talked about this on the show the other day, but look, I would love it. I would absolutely love it. And the Steelers are, you know, they're in a situation where they don't have to pay a quarterback, right? So, you talk about like, oh, do we really want to pay an inside linebacker? Whatever it be, $15 million a year. Well, you're not paying a quarterback. So the money's in the bank right now. It's just a question of if that's where they want to spend it. Obviously, the other question is like, what do the Bears want? Are the Bears even looking to trade him? Obviously, he wants a trade, but it takes two to tango there. Like the Bears have to want to trade him for this to actually become a thing. And then how much do they want for him? And are the Steelers willing to, I would love it. I would love it. You had Miles Jack and Roquan Smith in the middle of this defense. What, by the way, can we talk about Miles Jack for a second? How stupid is it that the NFL and let the Steelers get Miles Jack? Look, Devin Bush is not having a great camp right now. He certainly doesn't look like the player they drafted him to be. And so when you think about all the Steelers gave up to get him, right? The 10th overall pick in that draft, they gave up, I believe, the second and a third rounder to move up to do that. And Devin might not start this year. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about like year 4. Devin might not even be a starting caliber player for this defense. And so the Steelers should really be paying for that, right? This is a guy who they wanted to be their next Ryan Shazier. And they went through all like the John Bosticks and the Mark Barons of the world. And finally, okay, we're going to get Devin Bush. And you talk about where they are now. Boy, they would be how much of just a disaster would that position be today if they hadn't been able to get Miles Jack? Oopsies, found a Miles Jack. The interesting thing about people talk about Brian Flores a lot, right? And his impact on this defense, and specifically his impact on Devin Bush. And he can be the one to bring Devin Bush back. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case, but I do think we could see a career revival of Miles Jack. Because even if, look, I'm not saying Miles Jack is going to go back to being what he was in Jacksonville, but even if we get a certain percentage of that, it is so much better than what the Steelers have had at this position in really quite a while. I think they're going to have a playmaker in the middle of that field. Certainly Miles has shown moments in camp where it's, and it's just the defense that he's playing on right now, right? When you talk about the guys he has behind him, the guys he has in front of him, he can just kind of be Miles Jack again. He doesn't have to be the best player on this defense. He can be the 4th best player on this defense, right? The 5th best player on this defense and be great. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for what the Steelers are going to get out of Miles Jack. Oh, Miss Ye is here. Miss Ye is here. Oh, Miss Ye, happy to have you on the show today. For those of you who don't remember, Miss Ye got on me for a take I had. What was it? That was a long time. It was like 3 or 4 years ago, which I stand by. It was a Matt Ryan take, which I stand by. But yeah, Miss Ye, listener on Locked On Steelers when I was the host there and the co-host with Chris Carter, and now follow me over here to Steeler Country. Appreciate that, Miss Ye. Oh, she got a question here as well. The same thing about Devin Bush. They say he may end up getting benched. He's in a position battle right now. I look, as I said before, Spillane had such a bad day yesterday. Devin Bush almost can't lose this job because like Robert Spillane, at the end of the day, you get this guy in coverage, and if you have any kind of athlete against Robert Spillane, it's really, really tough. Spillane kind of has to, he's going to have to kind of, guess the route correctly in order for him to keep up because he's just, again, he's a sub athlete. So Devin should end up winning the job, but if he doesn't, like I said, what a disaster this position would be today if they didn't have Miles Jack. But sorry. The Steelers ended up with Miles Jack. Great job, NFL. Great job. All right. That'll do it for me today. Quick show today, but just wanted to go over the players I'm excited. I'm excited to watch everybody tomorrow. Let's be quite honest, but I wanted to outline the 10 or so players that I'm most excited to see tomorrow. Obviously, it's our first chance to see Kenny Pickett, first chance to see George Pickens, Calvin Austin, the future of this team, right? Mitch Trubisky as well. This is a post-Ben Roethlisberger era, post-Kevin Colbert era. It's just going to be a season of change in Pittsburgh, and this is kind of the first step of that. So excited to watch it. Thank you all for watching it here, and I'll be back next week from home to recap Steelers Seahawks right here on Steeler Country.